Hi, welcome to PlanStrongerTV. I'm your host, David Holland. On today's program, we're going to talk about Social Security, an important part of most Americans' retirement income plan. It's complicated sometimes, but so worth the work to figure it out for your situation. Joel Sasser, Certified Financial Planner, will be joining me on the program. Let's get to it. Welcome back. So, Social Security, big deal, big part of your plan, right? It's going to be around, and I think we can plan on getting Social Security when we retire. But the way you get it depends on your situation. What makes sense for you? That's what we're going to talk about. Now, the thing that most people get caught up on is, when do I take it? Do I do it right when I'm 62, which is the earliest, or do I wait as long as I can to age 70 to draw benefits? The answer, of course, depends on your situation. I generally recommend that if people are working and they like what they do and they can wait a little longer, of course, the longer you wait, the larger your Social Security benefit. And not to mention all your other parts of the plan, that if you have 401ks, IRAs, and other things, those monies can be allowed to work longer. And then when you go to take the money out, you're drawing it out over what? A shorter period of time. So it has kind of a double benefit. But there are very valid reasons for drawing Social Security before full retirement age. So you have to look at your situation. I've had people come to me and say, David, I don't really want to take Social Security yet, but I need the money because I'm forced to work part-time. It's not a crime. It's okay. Go ahead and start drawing Social Security. You just have to consider your situation and make sure you are careful about taxation and how much money you make. Now, the other thing is, I've had people say, well, look, I've got a pension that's going to start later, and I need money now, though, so can I draw Social Security now and then turn this pension on later and do it that way? Of course. So don't get caught up so much in maximizing the benefit, although that's good, and we're going to talk more about that, but think about maximizing the use of Social Security for your individual situation. And then by doing it that way, you can make the most and you can sleep at night and feel good about your decision. So we've got Joel Sasser on the program, Certified Financial Planner and Social Security expert. Let's go to him and we'll dig more into the subject. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have your miner's hat on because we're going to be digging deep into Social Security. And I'm very pleased to bring back Joel Sasser, Certified Financial Planner. And in my book, he's a Social Security expert. Welcome back, Joe.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Joe's with Sequent Planning, LLC, and also Covisum is the company that is his software. And I use Joe's software to do the financial planning calculations for how to make the most of Social Security. We call this optimization, right?
Indeed.
All right, excellent. So we're glad to have Joe back to dig deeper into Social Security. And you know, it's easy to lose our way or get lost in a cavern somewhere with Social Security because there's so many elements to it. But a couple of key things I want to take advantage of the time we have together, Joe, and dig into. And the first one would be looking at some of these decisions about when. That seems to be really where everybody starts. So we know we can start as early as 62 or as late as 70. There's an exception for widows, but or widowers. But generally speaking, if we draw early, normal retirement age 66, if we draw early, there's a cost to that, although we're getting the benefit earlier. And if we wait, there's a benefit, but then, of course, we're not getting the money. So let's break that down and frame that up for our viewers.
Sure. I think a lot of people are surprised that a delay between 62 and 70 results in a 76% increase in the benefit. If there's one number that you keep in the back of your mind, it's 76% if I can hold off. Because when you think about it that way, that really helps you delay, if delay were in your best interest in the first place. So 76%. What that really means is when you reach full retirement age, which for most of the people retiring right now, born between 1943 and 1954, that's 66, it's for each year you delay past 66, it's 8% per year increase in the benefit. Now for someone whose full retirement age is 66, if they claim early at 62, they'll get 75% of what they would have gotten at 66.
So start early, but it's reduced, and you're getting it for a longer period of time.
Yep.
62 versus 66, not hard math. You're getting it for 48 months or 4 years. Or if you wait, obviously, you're going to get more, and it's going to be, though, for a shorter period of time.
Yep.
Because you know, the assumption here is whether you take Social Security early or not, that you're going to live the same. But kind of a non-financial thing, who knows? Taking it earlier might make your life a little easier, and who knows, you might live longer.
And same on the flip side,
Yeah.
you know, that if you have a higher guaranteed income, there is actually research that suggests you live a happier life, which actually could potentially extend longevity.
There you go. So work till 70 and then max out your Social Security benefit. Now, for everybody else, that's not an option. Let's break down then some of what they need to think about with those decisions. So if they decided to take it early, there's a big one that everybody has to be careful about, especially if they're going to continue to work in some fashion or have part-time work. So they call that the earnings test?
It's called the earnings test.
All right.
And there are a whole bunch of nuances to the earnings test, but we'll do the real simple version.
Okay.
For 2017, you can make up to just under $17,000 in earned income and still collect a full Social Security check.
Okay.
For each $2 over that amount you would earn, you'll lose $1 of Social Security benefits. And of course, lose is an interesting term. That's the term that is used out in the media, but the money's not really lost. So if you do have an earnings penalty that stops your checks for a period in time because you made too much in earned income, what ends up happening is your benefit gets increased once you reach full retirement age, actually the year after reaching full retirement age, to account for any months in which you didn't get a check.
So the risk is really not as great or as ominous as it sounds initially, because we hear about losing your Social Security benefit if you take it early and you work. So let's say somebody goes into retirement, they're not planning on working, they take it at 62, yes, it's reduced, and then a part-time job comes up. Then they decide, well, I'll keep taking the Social Security, but I'm going to do this part-time work. And sometimes the part-time work gives them more income than they expected over the earnings test number, the 17,000 or so. Then the Social Security is reduced, but they'll get it still in the future. So they haven't really lost it. So it's kind of, it's not a high-risk proposition.
Yeah, the only real challenge it presents is cash flow planning challenges. When someone doesn't expect that they're going to miss some Social Security checks, and all of a sudden the money doesn't come.
Right.
That's the only thing to be aware of. And sometimes there are times when it makes sense to intentionally file for benefits, even knowing that you're going to have an earnings penalty for part of the year, especially when there are situations when someone else, maybe a spouse or a dependent child, might be able to also claim benefits based on your Social Security benefit.
Very good. Now, once we get to 66 or that person's normal retirement age, all bets are off, so to speak. You can work as much as you want. You can make $1 million a year and draw Social Security, and there is no issue with losing part of the benefit. Now, the thing that, again, gets easily mixed up in this conversation about Social Security is taxation is separate. So you may lose or not lose some of your Social Security benefit where it is pushed off until later, recaptured. Whether that's true or not, you still have taxation where some or most of your Social Security is brought into your income for tax purposes.
Indeed, and that's probably one of the most confusing things out there, because prior to 1983, Social Security benefits weren't taxable at all.
At all.
Now, if you have only Social Security benefits and no other income, they continue to be tax-free. However, Social Security is all about how it interacts with the other income that's on a return. And that's where an advisor who has a thorough understanding of tax planning concepts can be really helpful in identifying the ways to coordinate the Social Security benefit with the other tax types of income that a client may have hitting their return.
Very good. I think that's probably one of the key things that a financial planner does, Joe, when it comes to Social Security, is look at all the other assets that a person has and figure out a in a good way, a scheme, okay, a plan. There's no obligation to maximize your taxes under the tax code. You can minimize them. So by pulling on these other assets, of course, and other sources of income in conjunction with Social Security, you can keep a lower overall tax profile, which we like. We don't like getting into that higher marginal bracket, which is something else that I wanted to ask you about, is when people are drawing their Social Security and there's this potential for inclusion of their Social Security in taxable income, even though you paid in, we're talking about income tax. Where do people get tripped up there?
Surprisingly enough, there is some really nasty areas here where one additional dollar withdrawn from a retirement account at the wrong time can actually create an effective marginal rate. In other words, the idea, when I take out this extra dollar, how much of it do I lose to federal income tax? For someone who falls in the 15% bracket, they can actually lose 55 cents of the next dollar withdrawn from an IRA account by virtue of the interaction between that IRA dollar with Social Security and then with capital gains. Because that dollar of withdrawal can make some Social Security taxable that wouldn't have otherwise been, up to 85 cents on the dollar, which can then drag in $1.85 of capital gains that would have come through in a 0% bracket, making it all taxable at 15. So it can be pretty ugly. It's those spots that you really want to watch out for.
So the planning's key, and the thing that I've seen in building plans for people where we were bringing in all these things, Joe, one of the things I'm a little biased, and I think this is a good thing, I'm biased toward, is avoiding big jumps in your income when you're drawing from these different accounts. So, for example, I've seen people, without really having a clear picture of what they're doing, they take a large chunk out of an IRA 401k in 1 year, and then the next year they switch to a different asset. Maybe it's a mutual fund they liquidate, or an annuity, or they sell their house, and they're looking at all these assets the same and not really thinking about the tax consequence. And I'm a big fan of smoothing. I like to smooth it out. So I like to have the income being drawn from IRAs and qualified accounts. That's what we call the accounts that you haven't paid tax on yet. I like to draw that out over time and avoid these big spikes, because the IRS never gives you a break and says, you know, Joe, you paid a lot of tax last year. We're going to give you a break this year.
Yeah, we'll just level out those two brackets. No, doesn't happen that way.
So we've got to be careful with that because of the consequence you're talking about. And again, this is where weaving a plan together to bring these things in, and it might make sense to draw that pension earlier, or it might make sense to pull on some home equity if you need some cash with a line of credit or reverse mortgage, or it might make sense to liquidate the mutual funds and pay the 15% capital gain instead of getting whacked with this potential 55% effective tax bracket. It almost makes me speechless.
It's surprising to a lot of folks, some of the top CPAs in the country, because they're not often looking at the middle income tax return, are not seeing it until it's exposed. And then when they see it, they say, wow, that's an anomaly, is what they call it. But it's an anomaly that hits so many middle income taxpayers that it's really crossed the radar of a lot of strong advisors.
Well, that's like there being a slowdown in the economy. They call it a recession, and if it's you and you lose your job, it's a depression. so that's a reality of looking at this. So all of that factors in. Now, the other thing that I wanted to ask about is when we've done this and we've looked at this income planning, and we're trying to keep our taxes low and make the most of Social Security at the same time, which I think we can do, then we need to bring in the aspect of the person's situation, and I don't think we could stress this enough, to look at longevity and what their circumstances look like. If everybody in the family, aunts and uncles and my great aunt, everybody lived to 105, the planning for that person is going to be a little different than the person that comes into the office and I'm sitting down with, that maybe they're 55, but their genetics and their lifestyle and their history, they seem and are just more aged in terms of what they're going to experience.
Their real age.
Yeah, their real age, not their chronological.
That's right. Longevity is a huge issue, and really it's all about contingency planning. It's what if I live a very long time? What if I don't? What if I need care? What if my spouse needs care? All those things have to go into the consideration as people are making these decisions.
I think that's where sometimes people get hung up. We go through all of this sound planning, and We make it sound very logical, Joe, and it is. And we crunch the numbers and we say, let's think about your situation. But there is this, I think, an undercurrent that for people, and it's psychological. I earned it. I want it. I don't want to wait, because what if, Joe, I don't live to 90 where I've got $100,000 more in total income from Social Security because I delayed to 70. I want it now.
Mm-hmm. Simple answer is you're dead. You don't care. Now, that's the simple answer.
True.
The smarter answer is, realistically, you will be earlier in retirement, which means you will have spent far less of your other assets. Now, if you're married, you'll have a higher widow benefit, and that widow benefit is much more likely to pay for a very long period of time. So those are the kinds of contingencies that you really do think about and walk through.
I like that a lot. The consideration of the spouse's situation and what that's going to look like. It's the same thing when spouses are thinking about when they take their pensions and how they take them. Do they take a single life or do they take a joint life? And very often I've seen situations, and I'm sure you have too, Joe, where with pensions, sometimes the spouse has, really emphasized or wanted to take their pension as a single life, and it leaves the other person in a bad spot. It's the same thing with Social Security.
Absolutely.
So now the other assets coming into this, that's another key point. If we've kind of figured this out and somebody says, okay, Joe, hear you, it makes sense. I'm still going to take my Social Security. They are, by doing that, they are letting the other money potentially work. So this doesn't go one direction. You may say, well, I'll take the Social Security early, but then these other assets have a potential to grow. So you probably need to look at it both ways, right?
Yeah, and then some of the things you're considering are Roth conversions, particularly if you have a really high IRA balance. You're thinking, okay, does it make sense to get some money out of those IRAs and into a Roth such that those can be positioned for long-term growth? Yeah, each is dependent on the other, and that's why the holistic nature is important.
Yeah, exactly. And to your point about making that conversion and also the Social Security delay, if you're going to make a Roth conversion, that's not going to be the same year you want to start Social Security. You're going to have all this income, and then your Social Security on top of that. That's going to obviously make very much 85% taxable, and again, all those ripple effects you talked about earlier with capital gains and everything else.
Yeah, sometimes it's tiny Roth conversions, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a year can have a huge impact, and often there's a gap while you're delaying Social Security. That's a perfect window to be thinking about those. And then for folks who claim early, oftentimes it's just the lower benefit. It's not the higher wage earners benefit, so you still have a lot of window there. Lots of great opportunities.
No, great opportunities, and I'm thinking as you're describing that, Joe, for the person out there watching this, that if they've got IRAs, they're thinking about when to take Social Security, they're planning that out, and they've got some cash, they might decide to do some Roth conversions, use some of their cash, put that Roth, take the IRA into the Roth. Don't use that money, but get it into the Roth.
Right.
Use some of their cash, maybe pull on some equity in their home if they need to, and then let that Social Security slide out further until we finish the Roth conversion. And then, on the flip side, we don't have the IRA sitting out there, RMDs, required minimum distributions, that then will cause more of the Social Security to be taxable later.
Ding, ding, ding.
Oh,
yes, we have a winner.
I got it, finally.
Yeah,
All
that's a big concept, and that's a really common strategy.
Well, final thoughts on this subject for us, Joe. I mean, you're the expert, and you built the software. You've got a patent on it. I love that. Final thoughts for people in thinking about Social Security.
Although it seems complex, I think the biggest thing is really to divide the Social Security decision from the retirement date. That's number one. Second is to understand all the benefits that are available to you and how they impact other people that might claim based on your work.
Yeah, good.
And third is to bring it into the context of the plan.
Excellent. Well, complex doesn't mean complicated.
Right.
Necessarily.
Right.
It can be that you've mapped it out, and we want a little complexity because that complexity often means choice, and we've got multiple things we can pull on. Joe, thank you so much for being with us. Joe L. Sasser, our guest today, ladies and gentlemen, Social Security expert and certified financial planner. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, it's time for viewer questions. Now, this next question I get all the time. If I've heard this question once, I've heard it 100 times. No, not really. If there's any regulators watching, really that's an exaggeration, okay? But I do hear it often. So here's the question. How much money do I need to retire? How much? Tough, right? Everybody's situation is different. You knew I was going to say that part of it, but there's a lot more to it. There's two ways to approach figuring out how much money you need to retire or how much you can get from what you've got. Number one, you can say, well, look, I want this much in income when I retire. I've done the math. I've looked at what my expenses are going to be in retirement. I plan on downsizing, refinancing, moving, doing this, doing that, whatever the case may be. We plan on traveling. We plan on doing these things. I know what my income needs to be to meet my budget. Wonderful. How much do I need to accumulate to pay for that retirement lifestyle? Now, that's a beautiful, ideal way of doing your planning. And of course, financial planners, we love when that's the approach because that lets us feel like we're giving you the best probable or best possible chance of attaining your goal and making it through retirement and not running out of money. That lets us look at how to allocate your money properly. That looks at being able to figure out where to put your money, how much risk to take, how to structure it to meet your needs. So that's option number one. We like that. Option number two is I'm retiring. Can't take another day, or I have been let go, or right-sized, downsized, or there's been a change, whatever. No longer able to work. Maybe you've got to care for a loved one. Maybe it's not about work. Maybe it's your personal situation. Maybe it's health. So then we look at how much do you have and what can we do with that? So the question then becomes, how do we get the most out of that money that you've accumulated for retirement? Also looking at any potential sources of income like Social Security, of course, and a pension or any other income that you may get. Maybe you've got a rental property. But we look at it from an income standpoint and then figure out the best way to deploy the assets you've accumulated to reach that goal. So we can do it either way. We can say, how much do I need to accumulate to get the desired level of income? How long do you need to work, right? Or we can say, and approach it from the standpoint, here's how much I've got. I don't have any more time. Here's how much I've got, and I won't be getting any more. This is what I have to work with. Make it last. So these are the two primary ways to figure out how much you need or how much you can get in income. There's no magic formula. There's no one-size-fits-all. There are rules of thumb abound on the whole idea of how much to save or how much you'll need in income and all those things in retirement. But the truth is, there is no one-size-fits-all. There is no watching television in the morning while you're drinking your cup of coffee and they pop up a financial expert saying, here's what you do. It's a place to start. It's a place to get you thinking about how you plan your future and how you make sure that if you're already retired, how to make sure you're going to get where you need to go because you might need to reallocate. If you'd like me to answer your question on the show, or you'd like me to answer you privately, send me an email and I'll be happy to do so. One more thing before you go. It's okay to say no. Not long ago, I had an interesting experience where someone called my house wanting to help me with a problem with my computer. Maybe you've gotten a call like that. Well, a little backstory. Reluctantly, my wife and I agreed to let my son do some internet online gaming. And he was excited because his grandmother and grandfather had given him a nice pair of headphones with a built-in microphone, and he was excited to try it. Great. So he tried it, he played it for a while, and we started, maybe, I don't know, a month or so later, started getting these strange messages on the screen saying there was a problem with the computer, something else like that. And then I got the phone call, and the person identified themselves as being from Microsoft and said, there's a problem with your computer, we need to help you, so on and so forth. And I said, okay, well, I'll take a look at it. No, I can help you over the phone. I said, oh. He goes, are you at your computer? I said, no. He goes, well, can you go to it? And I said, no, I can't do that right now. I said, how do you know there's a problem? Well, instead of answering my question, he then proceeded to repeat himself and state he was from Microsoft and so on and so forth. And so I started to get suspicious. And I said, well, I'm not going to do anything. I said, in fact, I think this is a scam. Boy, I hit a nerve. Hit a nerve. He says, you think this is a scam? You think this is a scam? Well, to blank with you. Not something somebody from Microsoft would say. So what do they want? It's a scam. What do they want? You know they're going to ask for all kinds of information. They want a credit card. They want to scam us. So it's okay to say no. That's my message for you today. Say no. Everything in writing, send it in the mail. Don't give anything out over the phone ever. And if you do that, you'll plan stronger.
If you would like more information about the topics and our guests featured in this series, please visit our website at PlanStrongerTV.com. Also, if you have a question you would like David to answer, please send it to questions@PlanStrongerTV.com.